Hello, my name is Patrick Allen. I'm an interviewer for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. Today is February the 20th, 2025. The program is conducted in Southwest Ohio through the Cincinnati-Hamilton County Public Library under the direction of Brian Powers. And we're fortunate today to have the help of a cameraman, Ken Siri. And we are pleased, delighted to be able to do an interview today of Donald Clinton Wight. Can I call you Don? Do you go by Don or Donald?
Don.
Don, okay. Don, before we get into your military background, your World War II activities, let's talk about your family. When and where were you born?
I was born in a little town in southwest Nebraska called Bartley, Nebraska.
And when were you born?
1922, July 21st, 1922.
So you're going to be 100, you are 102, you're going to be 103.
Yes.
Wow. So were you born at home or in the hospital? Or
I was born at home, I'm told. I don't really remember it myself.
I'm sure you don't.
Yeah, I was born at home. Everybody was there in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Very few people around that town were born in a hospital.
What was your dad's name?
Melvin.
And what did he do?
He ran a little grocery store.
Okay.
It was a little store. He sold groceries to the farmers, but he bought produce from the farmers, and then they bought groceries from him.
Okay.
Produce, I mean, mostly cream.
What was the name of the little store?
Just, I don't know the name other than this, M.E. Wight's.
Okay, M.E. Wight's?
Yeah,
okay.
M.E. Wight, W-I-G-H-T, you know. That's the way it was.
Was that in the little town of Bartley?
Yes, yes.
How big was the town?
Well, when, it was about 500 when I left. It's a little less than that now, but it was about all the way up to about 500 people.
All right. And what was your mother's name?
Mary.
What was her maiden name?
Baker.
Aker?
Yeah.
What, A-C-E-R?
Pardon?
How'd you spell her last name?
B-A-K-E-R.
Oh, Baker.
Yeah.
Baker, okay. Do you know how your dad and mom met?
No, I don't, except they went to high school together.
And where was the high school? Right there
in Bartley, yes. And that was when everybody didn't go to high school in those days. My dad kind of worked his way, instead of working his way through college, he worked his way through high school.
Okay, what kind of work did he do while he was?
Well, before that he was a farmer boy.
Uh-huh.
But he, what happened there was they started what they called a creamery there in Nebraska, New Orleans, Nebraska, and he bought cream from the farmers, just cream. You know, they separated their milk and sold the cream, and that was his main product. He bought it for that New Orleans creamery.
Okay.
He worked basically for them, but he had to have a license. You had to be able to test it for a percentage of butterfat, because he's really just buying butterfat.
Okay.
And he had to learn how to do that, get a license to do it.
Where did he store it there at the farm?
Well, we stored it right in the store. When he bought it, he bought it in big cans. I mean, we bought it in their cans were smaller, but then he put it in the big cans and just stored it there for the day until a truck came around and picked it up. A truck from the New Orleans creamery had come around and picked it up.
Now, Bartley, Nebraska, you said was a small town, and back in
Yes.
back in the 1920s, did you have electricity in town?
Yes.
Did you have electricity in your house?
Yes, we had electricity. One light hanging down from the ceiling.
How about running water?
We had running water. We had it was a pump. It wasn't any city water at that time there, but we had a pump that we ran with an electric motor and a pump jack, pumped it
Okay.
up and down. Or if the electricity was out, there's a handle you could stick on there and pump it by hand.
Was that in the house or outside?
I was outside in the building. It had a big tank up above, and it would pump it up there and fill that up. And in the summertime, I use it to water the lawn and that type of thing. But then there was one spigot in the house too, in a sink. But that was only in the summer. In the winter, you couldn't have it; it'd freeze up, so we had to drain everything.
How about bathroom facilities? Did you have inside plumbing?
No inside plumbing.
How far was your outhouse from the door?
I never measured it. I don't know about. I imagine at least 50 feet. I imagine.
I bet it was a little cold going out there in the wintertime.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Now, in that part of Nebraska, were you subject to any kind of violent storm, lightning storms or tornadoes?
Lightning, thunderstorms, and tornadoes, but not much rain.
Okay.
We had drought most of the time I was young.
How about brothers and sisters?
Well, I had 2 brothers, no sisters.
You had
I had an older brother that was in the service with me.
What was his name?
William.
William?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a Melvin Wight.
Well, that was my dad's name, and my brother's name was Melvin William, but he went by Bill.
Okay, so Melvin William, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And was he your older brother?
Yes, he was a year and a half older than me.
And you had another brother?
Yeah, he was about 3 years younger than me.
What was his name?
Dale.
All right.
Dale Dean.
So Bill went in the service with you?
Yes.
And how about Dale?
No, he never went. He wasn't in the service. He couldn't pass the physical when they drafted him.
Well, before we talk about service, tell me about your school. Did you have a grade school there in Bartley?
Yeah, there's a grade school there and there's a high school there.
Well, in the grade school, was it more than a one-room school?
Yeah, the first, second, third, and fourth grade were in one room, and the first and second were in one room. The third and the fourth were in another room in the same building.
Yeah.
And then the high school building had the
Fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth?
fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, and the high school, all in one building.
And was the high school building a two-story building?
Yes.
Was that brick or frame?
Brick.
How about the grade school?
Well, it was frame. It was.
And did you have to have outside facilities for both of those?
The high school had inside facilities,
Okay.
but the rest of it was all outside.
Well, how did you heat your home? Did you have a coal furnace or oil furnace?
We had an old self-standing
potbelly stove?
Yes, basically that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we burnt coal once in a while, wood quite often, corn cobs. Had a lot of corn cobs, and that's what we cooked with all the time, was corn cobs.
Did you raise your own corn?
No, farmers were pretty much, that was pretty much corn country back there. And they'd raise them, and they'd have a lot of cobs to sell.
Sure.
And
And
they'd bring them in a team and wagon and put them in a building we had there on the place.
okay, you had a building where you stored the corn cobs?
Yep.
And did you
And
keep
the
anything
coal.
else in there, the wood or the coal?
Coal was in there. The wood was usually piled outside.
Okay. What kind of house did you have? Was it one story or two story?
One story.
Frame house?
Yes.
How many bedrooms did you have with your brothers?
Well, it was originally 3-bedroom, but then they took two of the bedrooms side by side. My folks took a partition out there and made one big room out of it, and three of us, all 3 boys, stayed in that room.
Okay.
Slept in that room for.
Okay. So, did you go to high school right after grade school?
Oh yes, I did. At that time, everybody went to high school. So my dad was going through there. That a good share of the farmer kids never went, and if they did, they had to pay us. It wasn't free.
But your dad went to high school?
Yes, my dad and mother both went to high school. That's where they met.
And your older brother Bill went?
Oh yeah.
Dale, he went?
Yes.
When did you graduate from Bartley High School?
I graduated in 1939. I was 16 years old when I graduated.
16?
Yeah, but that summer I became 17.
So did you work while you were in high school?
No. Well, in my dad's store.
Okay.
I helped him carry in the cream from the curb when the farmers brought them in. And they bought some feed from him too, some sack stuff, and they'd come in, they'd buy a big 48-pound bag of flour. Hardly ever bought a 5-pound bag of flour or anything in those days, and maybe 100 pounds of sugar.
Did they have canned goods in the store?
Well, yes, the grocery store, we had canned goods. Of course.
Did you help stock the store?
Well, no, not what I mean by stock.
Well, did you help put stuff on shelves?
Oh yeah, I did that sometimes, but I didn't buy purchase stuff from.
Well, how about Bill? Did he help in the store?
He didn't help in there hardly at all. Seemed like I was the only one. He had some jobs outside there. One time, the coal company there in town, he worked for them. Had an old truck with, it was a relic, but they hauled coal around to the people in town that ordered it, to the stores.
Well, did Bill drive the truck? Was he old enough to drive?
Yeah. As soon as he was old enough to drive, he drove the truck, and then he did some work too.
Did your dad have a car?
Well, yes, sort of.
Do you remember what he had?
Well, the first one was a Model T. I remember that one.
Sure.
It was old then, and we had I think a 28 Chevy, and we had a Plymouth later on. When I left and went to service, we had a Plymouth. That was the first new car we ever had, was that Plymouth. Those others were all just, well.
Was there a car dealer right there in Bartley, or did you have to go somewhere else to get cars?
No, there's a car dealer there, a couple of car dealers there.
What was the closest big town to Bartley?
The closest, well, there wasn't any big town very close, but the county seat was McCook, Nebraska. McCook, it's a, I don't know how big it is. It'd be a little town around here, even now. But that was about 20 miles away.
So Bill was a little over a year older than you.
Yeah.
Did he graduate high school before you?
Yes. The year before, yeah.
What did he do before the two of you went into service?
Well, he got a job on the railroad pretty young. I can't remember for sure whether he may still have been in high school when he worked on the railroad that summer. We had a big flood there and flooded the railroad, and there was a lot of work for almost anyone.
Do you know what railroad that was?
Burlington.
Burlington?
Yeah. Yeah.
I took a ride once on the Burlington Northern, but was
This was
it was just the Burlington then?
a Burlington. This wasn't the Burlington Northern. This was the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy. CBQ was what it usually went by. CBQ, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy. It was basically ran from Chicago to Denver.
Okay.
And it was just a single track.
Well, that's what I took, the Burlington Northern from Chicago to Denver. That was quite a ride.
Yeah.
So, how long was it between your graduation from high school and joining the service?
Well, joined the service in 1940, September 1940. I was working on the railroad. I had a job too. They was putting in some new track there, and I had a job, but I got fired because I didn't have I'd never gotten my Social Security. I never had a number. And finally I said, yeah. My mother had sent up for it. Somehow, I don't know what they had to do to get them. This was when they first came out, you know, Social Security cards.
But you didn't have one, so they let you go?
Yep.
Did you get another job, or did you just win?
No, I just right after that, Bill decided to go in the Army, and I said, I'll go with you. So I didn't get another job.
So you, what branch of the service did you go in?
Well, went into the Army. It was the Army.
All right.
I guess that's what I wanted to say. It was when we first got assigned. It was to the Coast Artillery. And
Where did you have to go to sign up?
Omaha. Well, signed up in McCook, and they sent us to Omaha to enlist.
Now, how old were you when you first went? Were you 18 yet?
18.
Okay.
Just 18, yeah.
So you didn't need your parents' permission?
Yes, I think we did. I think he needed it then. At 18, I believe.
Okay.
I believe anyway,
Why did you pick the Army?
I didn't pick it.
Did they draft you?
No, that was just they had a place in McCook where you could enlist. I guess that was the reason. I don't think any of those services had one.
Okay. So after you signed up, did you go back home, or did they send you right away somewhere?
They sent us right away from Omaha. From Omaha into San Francisco. We were stationed there on Angel Island, which is where all overseas people went to go. See, I didn't getting a whole bit ahead here maybe, but we didn't have any kind of boot training.
Well, I was going to ask you if you did any boot camp.
No boot camp at all before we went from Angel Island to boarded the boat there in San Francisco and went to the Philippines. Never had any training. Didn't have anything except uniforms issued.
Well, was Bill with you when you went to
yes.
San Francisco?
Yes.
Did he go with you to the Philippines?
Yes.
How'd you get to the Philippines, by boat?
Yes, by boat.
How long did it take you to get there, you remember?
Oh, about 30 days. We stopped at Guam. It was a slow boat.
Now,
because when we came back from San Francisco, or from Philippines to San Francisco was about 15 days. But we didn't go by Guam. We made a shortcut across there in a little faster boat.
so you were down there in the Philippines before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor then?
Oh yeah. I was there.
What were you doing in the Philippines?
Well, I was in the Coast Artillery on Corregidor. I was.
And where was Bill?
Well, that's a long story, but he had applied. Well, we both had applied for what they called West Point admissions school. If you passed that, you supposedly got a West Point appointment. There's only, I think, only one or two out of each big class that passed. So anyway, I didn't pass my physical, so I couldn't go, but I had applied for it.
Okay.
So he went there. That's where he was. About the time the war started, I guess. I don't know. I hadn't seen him for some time. He's up in a town there called Baguio in the Philippines. It was sort of a resort town, and pretty nice, I guess. I never was there, but he told me about it.
Where were you in the Philippines? What town or base?
Well, it was
starting out. You said Corregidor?
Pardon?
Did you start out at Corregidor?
Yes, we both started out on Corregidor. That's where we got boot camp. Corregidor.
And what did boot camp amount to there?
Oh, just some hiking and
exercise and drills.
Drills and some instruction with the rifle. With the rifle there was Springfield, World War I Springfield. You know, that's all we had.
Oh, really?
And then we had some instruction on. Well, I was immediately assigned to Battery C of the Coast Artillery there on Corregidor. Battery C of the 59th Coast Artillery. 59th Coast Artillery, and on Battery C, and that's I took my training in that battery with the.
What kind of gun were you trained on?
Oh, 12-inch disc bearing, 12-inch cannon, you know, a rifle disc bearing gun. They were models of before the World War I. They were really old, but they weren't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
They had shoot a 12-inch projectile quite a little ways. I can't remember exactly what the range was.
Well, what kind of accommodations did you have? Where did you sleep? And
well, they had the good barracks on Corregidor. Big stream of barracks that.
Were they frame or metal or what?
They were. Let's see. What were they made of? All I can remember right offhand are the windows. That was tropics, and we had high windows that slid back and forth, and the windows were all had little teeny sections, and each section had a piece of what they said was mother of pearl. It was a shell type thing. They're pretty nice barracks. They really were. They were all modern.
For the time.
Modern, and you know.
What kind of a bed did you have? Did you have a bed with springs, or did you have a cot, or what?
Oh, we had a cot. It had with the usual springs, and beds were good. They were good enough.
How about were the barracks divided into various rooms, or were the big rooms?
They were. I don't know if you had a special duty. You sometimes got a little special room, I guess, but mostly it was just one long, big room, all lined up there.
Do you remember how many guys were in the room with you?
Oh, yeah.
Were there a couple dozen or a lot more?
Oh, more than that. There was, I don't know, there were, each, let's see now, each.
Think there were more than 50?
Well, yeah, it was a. It was a battery. About each instead, I see coast artilleries and batteries rather than companies.
Okay.
So this was equivalent to a company, is what it was.
Okay.
And the company we had two levels there that we slept on, and each company was divided into two levels. So there was quite a few. I don't know. I don't think we were ever up to.
How about the food? How was the food?
Food, I thought the food was good myself. I heard a lot of complaints about it, but I always thought it was good.
Wasn't as good as Mother's, though, was it?
Yeah, well, no, a little different. A little different.
So what'd your average day consist of there? What time would you get up in the morning? What time was reveille?
Oh, boy, I don't even remember. It was
5 or 6?
Yeah, it was something like 5 o'clock, and had a reveille gun right down there close to our battery. That would wake you up. It was a loud thing.
So did you have something to do before breakfast? Did you have exercises?
Well, we had exercises before breakfast, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And a roll call, and exercises. And roll call, all line up and.
Any of the guys ever go AWOL on you?
No, not that I know of.
So you had breakfast, or what'd you do between breakfast and noon?
Well, depending on what you were doing at the time, like, of course, during boot training, it's, just the normal marching and learning the manual of arms and all that type of stuff, plus a little bit of practice aiming the rifle.
Did you get any marksmanship badges?
No, I didn't get any. Most of the time we were aiming, we did it in a sort of a strange way, I guess. They'd mount your rifle was mounted on a
tripod.
Sort of a little box, and you'd lay down in a prone position and up to the rifle like you'd be if you were shooting it.
Uh-huh.
And then you had a target paper out there. I don't know how far it was, but far enough that you couldn't see what they were putting on it. But they were marking it with a pencil, and you'd tell them where you thought the bullet would hit if you fired it.
Uh-huh.
And they'd put a point on there, and they'd take it all away and make you do it over again. And if you could, get it within just get those dots within a certain, then you did good. If you were way off on each one, do good. And then we had live firing down on the firing line, and I did pretty good on that, except that my darn rifle wasn't working right, and of course you only allowed so many rounds. We were only allowed so much ammunition,
Sure.
That type of thing. And when we had rapid fire, you only had so many seconds, I don't know what it was, to get all your rounds off.
Uh-huh.
And when I was in that part of it, my darn rifle would always kick the fifth round out with the fourth one. And so I didn't do too good on that, but I can blame that on my rifle.
Uh-huh.
But on the other, where we were just firing, taking our time, I did pretty good on that. I got, but I don't know as we were ever rated for.
Well, how tall are you, Don?
5'10".
And how much did you weigh when you went in?
I think I was around 135. I was pretty skinny. well, I don't know. That wasn't skinny, I guess. But I got up to more than that.
While you were in the service?
While I was before the war. Yeah.
Okay, while you were in high school?
Yeah, I was in high school, and before the war, while I was on the Philippines before the war, I gained weight.
What, did you ever get up to like 150 or 60?
I think more like 45 or 50, 145 or 50, I think, until when right after the war was over, the Japanese had a scale there where they weighed out our rice rations, and of course then we kind of took it over and weighed ourselves. Of course it was in metric, but they had a conversion there from the kilos, and there I weighed just right around 100 pounds. I'd gone down quite a bit.
Wow, yeah, you had. Well, while you were on Corregidor, do you remember hearing about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
How did you learn of that?
Well, before Pearl Harbor, about 2 weeks before Pearl Harbor, a colonel put all his, the 59th, at least, I don't know about the other batteries, I think they're all probably did about the same. Our station, what our wartime station would be, and live there. I didn't have.
You had to leave the barracks and go down by the gun?
Yeah, I had to go down there, and well, I didn't go. I was working with Colonel Bunker, who was the commander of the 59th, and he ran a little what they call C1 station. Command station. C1 was number one for the 59th, was a big station.
And where was that located? In the base or by the shore?
Well, it was on the cliff overlooking the shore.
Okay.
See, top of Corregidor where we were was what, 400 or 500 feet high.
What was the colonel's name? Bunker?
Bunker, yeah.
B-U-N-K-E-R?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So were you with Bunker?
Yes, I was with Bunker, and he took us and put us. We were on alert. We had to run our instruments all day long and all night long, you know.
Well, did he tell you why you were being put on alert?
Yeah, he said he told us after he got us all. There was about 5 of us, I guess, was working in there, and he told us that he just had a message from, I guess it was from MacArthur, and it said, and the message read, "The Japanese fleet said moving south. Please take," or don't think it said please, but just said take necessary steps to ensure safety of command. And that was a couple of weeks before Pearl Harbor.
All right.
But of course we didn't think anything had come of it. And
had you been put on alert before that, or was that the first time?
That was the first, and then we stayed down there and for about 2 weeks, and that one morning, it was still early morning our time, the sergeant was waking me up saying, "Hey, White, get up, get away, get up, Pearl Harbor's been bombed." I said, "Get out of here," you know. I thought he was joking. He said, "I'm not kidding you, that's true, and he's supposed to come into the station here now for a little bit." So that's how I learned about it.
So tell me about how much more active your unit became after Pearl Harbor.
Well, we never did fire our big guns. The Japanese wouldn't bring their ships in close enough for us to fire at them.
Did you see any of them?
Yes. but they'd be way off on the horizon. With the instrument we had, we could see them.
Well, let me ask you this, Don. How long after you were put on alert did you see Japanese ships?
Oh, it wasn't until after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, but how long after that? Days or weeks or what?
I would say days.
Okay.
Days, I think. Maybe a day or two, I don't know. So the first thing we saw was the Navy who was situated in a harbor right behind Corregidor. Corregidor was at right in the front of Manila Bay, and the Navy had their harbor back toward Manila. And
did the Navy get into action when you saw the Jap ships?
We just no, they didn't get any action. I saw them. The first thing I saw were their ships leaving Corregidor, leaving Cavite, leaving their harbor. The only thing they left around Manila was their little PT boats, little patrol torpedo boats, like.
Yeah. They left PT boats and you.
Yeah, well, they left them. Yeah, and they left the Navy people to run too. They left them too.
Mm-hmm.
And they were pretty active for a while, but they soon got worn out or lost. Until MacArthur left to go home, he left in one of them. I saw him leave from where I was up on the C1 station. I saw him. I didn't know it was him then, but I found out later that's who it was. We were.
Did you ever meet MacArthur?
I got with him one time. One time we were bombing. They were bombing and shelling us at the same time. And that's the only time I saw him, when it was really hot.
Uh-huh.
And he came in there with, I guess, an aide or somebody. But he came in, and I was trying to get a message, a phone message written down. I was sitting on a kind of a high stool, had a bench or a place to take a message, and somebody was poking me on the shoulder, and I thought, well, that's a sergeant or somebody wanting. And I said, just a minute, I'm trying to get a message here. And so they stopped poking me, or somebody did. Imagine it was MacArthur's aide, I suppose.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, when I got through, I turned around and slid down from my stool, and there right in front of me were those 4 stars staring me right in the eye. He says, I want to see Colonel Bunker. The guys had dug a sort of a cave for Colonel Bunker to sleep in. That C1 station wasn't very good to have any place for a bed. I had to go get him.
Uh-huh. So did you hear their conversation at all?
No, I didn't hear. He got with Colonel Bunker, and I don't know what they talked about.
Well, what was your first experience when the Japanese started shelling Corregidor or bombing you?
Oh, when they started bombing me, I don't know. I can't hardly remember, except.
Well, were you out there at on the cliff?
Yeah, I was out there, and I was in the C1 station. Okay. And that was a bunker. You've seen those little what do they call them? Pill boxes. Yeah. Well, this was a big pill box. Okay. So it was built like that. Okay. And it was pretty safe to be in there, except for a direct hit. Uh-huh. But So I stood there and listened to the bombs come down. You could hear them coming.
Well, what are you thinking? You're 18 or 19 years old. These bombs are coming. What's going through your mind?
I can't remember. I don't know exactly, except that
Well, you eventually were taken prisoner, right?
oh yeah.
Well, tell us about leading up to being captured by the Japanese.
Well, I was just, we were, of course, the bombing wasn't as bad as the shelling. See, after Bataan fell, and they put the big howitzers on Bataan, and you see the Bataan Peninsula came down right close to Corregidor, within 3 or 4 miles there. I don't know just what the thing was, but they could fire those.
So did Bataan fall before Corregidor?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
About a month. And then they got up there with those things and just really bombed the heck out of us. I don't know. I can't really remember the thoughts, so I don't know. I can't hardly remember that far back.
Well, do you?
I don't know.
Do you remember what date it was that you got captured? Was it in 42?
It was in 42, yeah. It was, let's see, March, May, I think May 5th or 6th of 42, I believe, but that should be in the history book somewhere. That's as I remember it. And it was about a month later after Bataan fell.
Well, tell us the circumstances of you personally getting captured.
Well, we were, I was, I don't know, Colonel, by that time, they had, this gets complicated, by that time the engineers there had built us a tunnel just off of the C1 station, and we were staying in it then, with more people than actually worked in the C1 station, others staying in there too. And I just woke up one morning and things weren't the same as they had been. I noticed all the guys stirring around. And finally told me, the colonel told us that we were to destroy equipment as planned and surrender to the Japs.
Okay.
So that's what we did. And
how'd you feel about that?
Well, I didn't feel very good about it.
Had you ever you and your unit ever fired your cannon, or have you ever fired your Springfield rifle?
We never did. Some of the other folks did, but we never. Colonel Bunker never sent us down to do any firing.
Well, who did you surrender to? Was it a group of Japanese?
Oh yeah, we went down there. What they called bottom side. We had to. I don't know if you've heard of Malinta Tunnel or not. That was a big tunnel where the hospital was and everything, and that's where the Japanese were taking us to. They just lined us up and took our wristwatches and a few things like that.
Well, what kind of clothes did they let you have?
Clothes is what we had on. That was all.
Did you have shoes?
We all had shoes, yeah. But they didn't last very long. We never wound up with shoes until they decided to take us, over to Japan later on in the war.
Well, how long were you on Corregidor as a prisoner?
On Corregidor?
Yeah.
Oh, probably about 3 days and nights, I suppose. And then they brought in a big boat alongside, a big ship, and we all loaded aboard that thing. And they took us over to Manila and marched us from Manila down to the Bilibid prison there. They always called it, their prisoners are like the guys in our penitentiary. They were called Bilibid prisoners for some reason. They were Philippine lawbreakers, I guess you'd say.
Well, how far did you have to march to get down to that prison?
I don't know how far it was. It was quite a little ways, but we didn't have it bad like the boys from Bataan did. The boys from Bataan, well, my brother was in that march, the one they call the Death March.
Yeah.
And they had an awful time. And we finally got together in prison camp.
So Bill and Bataan Death March.
Yes. See, after he got out of that school he was going to, he got assigned to MacArthur's headquarters and working for MacArthur. And he brought him over to. MacArthur moved there from Manila into Corregidor, and he had too many clerks with him, so Bill was out of a job. Really, he wasn't doing anything on Corregidor until I don't know how long. I guess a month before Bataan fell. They sent him over there to work for, and he worked for General King over there. And in fact, he told me that after the war, he told me that he was clerk typist, just a plain clerk typist.
Okay.
Come a dime a dozen, I guess. So, but yeah, he said he typed up the surrender for Bataan.
Oh, really?
That's what he said, that King had...
Well, what experience did he have in the Death March? Did he tell you anything about that?
Yeah. He told him lack of water was one bad thing. If they came to a spot where there was a little water along the road, you probably didn't want to drink it anyway, but if you tried to, the chaps usually wouldn't let you. They shot a lot of guys just because they went for the water.
Oh, really?
And Bill said that there was one guy he was helping along because he was pretty bad shape, and the Japs didn't like the speed going, so he said they bayoneted that guy right in his arms.
Oh, my. But they didn't do anything to Bill.
No. He was walking all right. He could keep up with the rest of the gang if he didn't have that guy to help along. Wow. That was the thing.
Did he tell you anything about how... did they march day and night, or...?
Yeah. I don't know. Shoot, you can. That's history. It can be read somewhere. I don't.
You don't remember what he told you about it?
I don't remember how many days they marched. Now I'm sure he told me, but I don't remember. I don't remember.
Where did he end up?
Well, they went to. I can't think of the name of the town now, and then they were sent from there into a prison camp that was, in
the Philippines?
Yes.
Okay.
Surrounded with barbed wire, called Cabanatuan Camp 1, I believe. When after we got, into Bilibid, we went to another camp like that was called Camp Number 2. And what they were Philippine, they were trying to train a Philippine army, and they were Philippine army camps, and they had buildings built on them, that is, buildings, they were just grass huts basically, but with bamboo in for sleeping compartments that weren't too bad, really. Weren't too bad for.
How about food? What did they feed you while you were a prisoner?
Just rice.
Rice?
Yep. That's all. That's what kills so many guys is that rice diet. They started getting that beriberi so bad. Maybe you've heard of beriberi.
Well, tell us what that is.
Well, it's a disease caused by lack of vitamin B1. You see, if they would have let us have unpolished rice, we probably wouldn't have gotten it. And I didn't. I didn't get any till toward the last of the war. I was over in Japan. I started getting a little bit of beriberi. Boy, some people just swell up terrible. Like, swell up. They punch your finger into it. It was like punching your finger into dough. It'd go down, but it wouldn't come back up for a while. That was that type of a thing. And it killed a lot of fellows there. I don't know. I was one of the few, and after I was moved out of the rest of us guys from Corridor were moved out down to the Camp 1 where Bill was. Well, then that's when I got with him, but he was in such bad shape, terrible. But.
Well, what did you do there in camp? Did the Japanese have you doing anything to help them?
Yeah, we had they had a farm going, make food, to grow some food.
They're in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we grew some, but we didn't get it. They got it.
Did some of the guys try to steal it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What happened to them?
Well, if they got caught, they got knocked around a little. I think about the worst was there. But
did you ever get punished for anything in any of the camps you were in?
Yeah, a little bit here and there. But in Japan, after I got to Japan,
well, how many camps were you in the Philippines? 2, Camp 1 and 2?
Camp 1 and 2, and then another in the. That was called Las Piñas.
Las Piñas?
Yeah, Las Piñas prison camp, I guess it was called. I don't think it had any other name. But what they had us doing over there was building an airport, an air base, out of the rice paddies over there.
And what did you do while you were doing that?
Oh, well, dug dirt and moved it by hand, mostly.
Did you have a shovel or any implements?
Well, that's it. They didn't have any decent shovels. They had some that were been handmade there in the Philippines, and they were so weak they'd bend. And if you tried to do anything with them, the metal was so
thin.
Yeah, thin. And what they had to do, they had to run right down through the middle of where they wanted the airport. There was a little river or a little creek or something, and they wanted to dig a ditch along the outside, and so they could drain that river over into it. And we worked on that. It was we were digging that ditch, and it was pretty deep, and made beautiful sides on that. They were neat people. They wanted everything neat. And we'd dig it down, and it'd come down, I don't know what angle, and a flat across the bottom. But when they took the dirt up above, they wanted where we piled it to look just like it had come out of there and turned over, It had the same shape. And that was one of the funny things, because...
Well, how many hours a day did you have to do that?
Oh, I don't know. Well, let's see. I don't know.
Was it morning to night? Or?
Yeah, well, it was just morning, An afternoon was what it was. They didn't have us there at night. Morning.
Did you have any food or water while you were working?
Yeah, they'd give us some rice about noon, usually.
Any water or anything to drink?
Well, yeah, we had water there.
Was the water decent?
I don't know. We drank it and didn't die from it, so I guess it must have been.
That was a plus, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the other thing was funny about that stuff, that dirt that was piled on outside of that ditch we dug. We got that looking real nice, and they were happy with that. But then they brought in a bunch of little trainer planes. The base wasn't ready for their military aircraft, but these little biplane trainers, they were cute little rascals, and they were trying to train pilots. And anyway, the problem turned out to be that they, instead of out, the main part of the field, they didn't want any of that taken out, so they just sodded one end of the field good enough for those little planes to land on. And they would, to do that, they had to come in right over that bunch of dirt. And the funny thing was that was the way the wind was blowing, and it's blowing the opposite direction they were landing, and of course, as usual, and it hit that bank. It was sloped just like that ditch, and boy, it would shoot up, and turn those little planes.
Turn it over?
Turn. Well, it made the run awful tough, landing awful tough for them. So we had to tear that all down, flatten it out then.
So build it up and tear it down.
Yeah, that sounded like the Army.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the survival rate of the workers on that airfield.
Well, the airfield wasn't too bad. You see, my brother managed to get sent out on that same detail, but he wasn't there very long till he got sent back to Camp 1 because he just wasn't in the shape to work. He was just bad shape. And
so what was the matter with Bill? Just a lack of food, or beriberi, or what?
Well, when he was in that, I guess that Camp 1 before during that month before Corridor fell, he volunteered. They had a disease of diphtheria started around, and we supposedly everybody was immune from the stuff, but it wasn't. What's all that about?
I don't want you to get in front of the microphone.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
That's all right.
I wondered what I was doing.
So
he got to working with digging the scabs out the throats of the guys with the diphtheria, and he caught the diphtheria. He thought we all had shots. He knew he'd had, but he got it, and that was his main problem. He just about died from that and never did really recover.
But even with that diphtheria, he was able to survive that death march.
Yeah, but that diphtheria came after the death march.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was the last camp in the Philippines Los Pinos?
Los Pinos, yes, that was the last camp I was in. And they finally, what's his name in his airport? It was a big admiral.
Nimitz?
Nimitz. No, not Nimitz. Halsey.
Bull Halsey?
Bull Halsey. He had bringing his fleet down there by that time. You see, this was in '44 then. By that time, it was '44. and they never actually bombed our field. There wasn't any planes on it, and they never even dropped any bombs on that. Of course, it wasn't finished.
So you were in the Philippines from 42 to 44?
Well, I was I was in the Philippines from 1940 to 44, yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
You were telling me that from Los Pinos, then they put you on a ship?
Yeah.
Where'd they ship you to?
Well, we were supposed to go to Japan, I claim, but we got chased all over the China Sea by submarines and finally wound up in what was called
Formosa?
Formosa then. I think that's Taiwan now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
But
what kind of ship were you in?
oh, it's, the one I drew wasn't much of a ship, but I was probably lucky that it wasn't. It probably wasn't worth hoisting a torpedo on.
So you never got shot at by any subs?
I don't know, that we didn't get hit anyway,
Uh-huh.
but we could hear them. We had a bunch of Navy prisoners that were from the old Navy with us, and the English had some. We had some of their prisoners there too. A whole bunch of those on there. Then I wouldn't have known, but we kept in that ping on the side of our ship, and those naval guys would tell us, well, we're being pinged. In other words, they were checking us, but they either didn't fire anything at us or they didn't hit us.
Thank goodness.
I don't think. Of course, the ship probably all they had on was us prisoners, and that was
How many?
the hold was probably empty, and they could tell by the ping. The Navy said that it wasn't full. It wasn't a full ship. It wasn't filled with anything.
How many prisoners were on board with you?
I don't know.
Are we talking about dozens or hundreds?
Oh, hundreds. Well, I suppose hundreds to start. We're in a hold there, and there was room in that hold. When we got on, there was only room. Everybody couldn't even sit down at one time. Part of it had to stand. That's how crowded that was.
Oh, wow.
And it got pretty bad.
Well, how many days did it take you to get to Formosa?
Well, it was, I think it was 30 days, I believe, just about 30 days.
Well, what did you have to eat on that trip?
Oh, they'd send down a bucket of rice every once in a while. I wasn't really wanting anything more to eat. I wasn't eating much, but we did get short of water down there.
So did you lose some of the prisoners on the trip?
Oh yeah, bunch of them.
And what
Finally, before we landed in Formosa, there was enough space that you could lay down. Had a place to lay down.
Wow. So you lost quite a few.
Oh yes. Yes.
What did the Japanese do with them? Just throw them overboard?
They had a detail up there. I don't know those Japanese. I never saw the burial detail, but they were telling about it. They were throwing the bodies overboard somehow. Japanese were.
Did you lose any friends on that trip?
I don't think so. I think there was only one other guy on there that I knew.
Uh-huh.
Really.
So
when we were getting on that ship in Manila, you know, they were loading another big ship, nice looking ship over there. And I thought, gee, that's one we should have gotten on, you know. Well, that one was the one that got sunk.
it got torpedoed, didn't it?
Yeah, and my brother was on it. I wasn't sure that it was myself. I mean, I didn't see him, but somebody else that knew him I don't know. I must have known this guy too, but I can't remember who he was. Now, he told me that he saw Bill getting on that ship while we were getting on ours. They were loading that other ship over there.
Well, did Bill survive that sinking?
No.
He was killed in that sinking?
Pardon?
Bill was killed in that sinking?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Well, when you got to Formosa, what kind of camp did they put you in?
Finally, they let us off there. That wasn't where they intended to take to Japan, but finally they decided that if they're going to have anybody left, they better get us off the ship, I guess. And so they took us off there and took us on the railroad. Didn't have to walk. They took us on a little railroad into Formosa there somewhere, and it was we were in a fairly decent camp there, really. I thought it was a school, been a school for kids, I think they said. What the word was that went around, you never know for sure what to believe, but anyway, it had pretty decent place to sleep. They had, like the kids slept when they were students there. They had little bays on the floor, little apartments, and it was all loaded with rice straw, which was pretty darn good. You know, it wasn't bad at all. And the weather was pretty nice. It was something like a semi-tropical place.
How about food? How about food?
The same thing.
More rice?
Yes. All right. Although,
Well, let me go back to your trip from the Philippines to Formosa. What kind of ship were you on? Was it a steamship or?
Yeah, it was a steamship. It was a steamship, but other than that, I don't know much about ships. It was. I think it had two holds. Come to find out, now just reading stuff later, I think in the hold in front of us, I think they had some of our officers, but I'm not sure.
Did you talk with any of the Japanese guards?
Talk to the guards?
Yeah.
On the ship?
Yeah.
No, not on the ship, I don't think. I was down the hold. Didn't they let them come down in the hold?
Well, when you were in your camps in the Philippines, did you get to know any of the Japanese guards?
Well, yeah, I got to know some of them. Yeah.
How did they treat you?
About if I remember their name. We all gave them names that were other than their regular names. Well, the treatment wasn't too bad there in those Cabana 1, camps 1 and 2. Most of the time, it was just a lack of treatment.
Okay.
No medicine. And
how about Formosa? How'd they treat you there?
It's about the same.
You ultimately got sent over to Japan, didn't you?
Yeah, that was. We weren't there in Formosa very long. I can't remember just how long. I think it was in. See, we left Philippines, I believe. Right 1st of September, and we actually arrived in Japan in December. So we were there October, November, I guess.
So that's 1945 or 44? 44?
44, yeah.
Now, was that the same kind of ship that you went from Formosa to?
No, it was it wasn't they had us in a place that actually had sleeping.
Oh, like a troop ship?
Yeah.
Or a passenger line?
Yeah, they were just, they had bays down in the hole we were in, and everybody had a place to lay down. It wasn't too bad going to Japan.
On all this ocean travel that you did in either getting from the States over to the Philippines or from the Philippines to Formosa or on to Japan, did you run into any typhoons or anything on board ship?
Let's see. No, we had all my trips on those ships were for pretty good weather.
Okay.
Of course.
So we got you going from Formosa over to Japan. Where did you go in Japan?
Well, we landed in the city of Sendai.
Sendai?
Sendai, yeah, it's a fairly big city. As far as I know, I never was told exactly where it was, but just from being there, knowing.
Do you know how to spell that?
I think it was Sendai, I think, but I don't know for sure. I think that was it.
Okay.
Sendai, I believe.
What did you do at Sendai?
Well, then they took us from Sendai. They put us on a little train and took us up into the mountain area where they had a prison camp built for us.
Okay. How big was that camp?
Well, I suppose there were 100 of us there, I suppose. I don't know. There were maybe more than that. There was partly part of us were Americans and a bunch of them were British that were prisoners.
Uh-huh. Now, on one of those ships, I've read something that you wrote about. There was something they called a toilet ship.
What?
The Benju Maru?
Oh, that one yeah, that's the one that we took from Manila over there. That was such a crappy looking ship, you know. It was had holes rusted through above the waterline. So we I don't know what the name of it was, but we called it the Benju Maru.
Uh-huh. And that was from Manila over to Formosa?
Yeah. Okay. Of course, Benjo was a toilet in Japanese. Yeah. We did. We called it that.
There was a note that at the time you kind of wish you'd get hit by a missile to put you out of your misery.
Yes, there was on that ship. I kept thinking when they hit those Navy guys telling us something about hitting torpedo, and I kept thinking, boy, when we were short on water, I thought, boy, it sure be nice to have a big hole with water coming through it, wouldn't it?
So we've got you from Sendai up to a mountain camp. What'd you do up in the mountain camp?
Well,
Did you work up there?
Yes. What the prisoners did in general, they worked in what we did in general was work in a mine, a lead and zinc mine. Went back under that mountain. And I think it had probably been abandoned at one time because it wasn't producing too much, but as long as they had cheap labor.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I lucked out there again. I lucked out in a lot of places. I didn't have to work down in the mine.
Well, what kind of a mine was it? Was it a drift mine that went into the mountain, or did it go down in the ground?
No, it was drilled down toward the base of a big mountain or big hill in the mountain, big peak in the mountain anyway, and they went back. They had a little railroad running back into it, and all the guys that worked down in there had to push those carts full of lead ore. You know, they had to dig out the lead ore, and I said they had it pretty rough. I was pretty lucky I got out of it.
Well, what'd you do?
Well,
you didn't have to do that?
No, I didn't have to do that. Somehow another fellow and I, how we got selected, I don't know. We didn't we didn't ask for the job, but we used to, up at the top of the mine, right where the railroad came into. Then that well, they used the railroad to haul coal to where they were refining the ore. Of course, you need a little heat for that. And so one of our things was shoveling that coal, but it still wasn't all that bad. And so
the fellows that had to move those mine carts, did they have to move those by hand, or did they have mules or donkeys?
Pushed them. No, they just pushed them out. They came down. One of the times I got in trouble was one time there was a shortage of men there to do the job normally, and I at the time was just getting over some of my ailments I had that I couldn't work for a while because I had phlebitis in my leg.
Your left leg?
Yeah, it was this one. It was phlebitis is a blood clot. I had a blood clot. Well, the doctor that looked at me said, "Well, you got a blood clot. I don't know what's wrong." And but that morning when it first came up on me, those pants I had, we had legs on them. Before we left Manila, they gave us some old Japanese uniforms, knowing supposedly we were going to that colder climate. So, but that leg swelled up till they couldn't even get them off. They just took some scissors or something and cut up the leg to get it loose. Over there.
Well, what'd they do to treat it?
Well, that's what that doctor told me. He says, if I had you in a hospital back in the States, there's not much I can do for that. What we do is just keep you still and hope it bypasses everything. And they did it. Finally, the swelling went down my feet first, and then on this ankle here was what he called a hematoma, which is to me it was just a heck of a big blood blister, about the size of your fist, sticking out there. And the doctor took a pair of. He didn't have any really sharp instrument. The Japs wouldn't let him have any real sharp instrument. But he had a pair of scissors that was used to cut off, I think bandages and things. And he took it and managed to slice a hole in that thing. It didn't hurt because it was just numb. And boy, it bled all over the place.
So this was an American doctor?
Yep.
He was one of the POWs that came with you from Manila?
Yeah, he was. And then
so how long were you out of commission with that?
Well, I don't know.
We're talking days or weeks?
Yeah, it was. Well, it must have been weeks. Yeah. Anyway, when I went, they finally, when I was getting over that, I went down there and and was breaking up carbide. They got, they had those carbide lights like miners lose on their heads. And they had carbide there, but it came in
big chunks?
Yeah, big chunks, and it was hard to break up. I had to pick there breaking that stuff up, and as the guys were coming by, I thought no one was looking. I was passing out carbide for them, for they had their little lunch boxes with them that they had their rice in for noon, and they were empty. So they want to put that carbide in there, Because when they got home, most of them had big sores from working in that mine. I don't know what caused. Never saw anything like it. Just big holes in their hands, practically. I don't know. Can you get a lead poisoning? I don't know what was trouble with them. But anyway, they like to take that carbide home. They were supposed to take their lamps home and clean them, but they'd take and use that carbide in the lamps to heat water to clean out their sores.
Okay.
And so I was passing that carbide out to them, and I got caught.
Oh, so who caught you? One of the guards?
Yeah.
And what'd they do to you?
Oh, just beat me around a little bit. That never hurt me too much. That wasn't too bad.
You know, too much is a relative term now. What'd they do to you?
Oh, well, they had some shillelaghs. But this guy that was doing the beating, he was black. I swear he was American Negro, but I don't know. He sure didn't look Japanese to me. And he was big, had big hands. I don't know. Well, called him. His nickname was Joe Louis to us. Called him Joe Louis. And I noticed after the war, they had caught a guy they were claiming to be. He was on trial as a war criminal, and I don't know how it came out. Whether they ever.
Well, were some of the Japanese guards better to you than others?
Oh yeah. There are lots of difference. Lots of difference, especially in Cabana 1. We had some guards pretty good. The older military men were the best. And they bring in those little recruits or whatever they were. They all had a
bad disposition, huh?
Yeah, they like to try to be mean, but some of the old ones are pretty good. Be right down friendly with you.
How about at the mine? Did any of those treat you differently?
Well, no, of course, this other guy and I that was working where we were working with civilians, and they were pretty good. They were pretty good. Well, how I got that claw, that claw on my leg, on my ankle. I guess that's where it was, what caused my whole leg to swell up. But we were shoveling coal, and there was a little bit of rain. Of course, this was December when we first started there, I think. It was cold anyway, and it had a little bit of rain, and it was cold enough to freeze. And the darn coal pile we were working on got frozen, so it was hard to shovel the darn coals. But we worked inside of the coal pile far enough to get to some coal that wasn't frozen, so it wasn't so darn hard to. And that darn coal pile shifted on us, and I got just my legs got a little bit buried in that, and I guess that's where I got it. I assumed that was. But I hobbled around on it for a little bit, but I didn't think I was hurt. It was a day or two after that I got that blood clot started. And the doctor said, well, I was injured from coal.
What they use the coal for? What were they heating?
Well, they had a refinery there in order to
process the lead and zinc.
Yeah, I guess there was zinc mixed with the lead probably. They said it was coal or lead and zinc, so I can't tell by looking at it. Pretty darn those pigs that were coming out of there were pretty heavy, and they were about I don't know, long and so thick, and lead is heavy. I don't know that zinc is that heavy, but I think it was mostly lead. I don't know.
You mentioned there were some, in this note that I have, that there were a lot of deaths from dysentery.
Oh yeah, that was in the Cabana de Juan.
Down in the Philippines.
Yes, yes, especially there. We didn't have any sanitation. Yeah, terrible flies all over the place, and we're dying from dysentery and that beriberi. But I was one of the few that was strong enough to make a burial detail. So
you didn't tell me about that. What's going on with this burial detail? What'd you do?
Well, just bury the guys that were dying. I have a slab of was like a door off of something. It was made of bamboo and swally, I think, and they'd throw a body on there and then put one guy on each corner to carry that. And there weren't too many guys strong enough to do it.
You were one of them.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Now, where did you take the door and the body?
Well, I took it out to a place where they were burying them in the prickly swamps. It was terrible.
So they didn't bury them in the ground. They just put them in the swamp?
They tried to, but their burial place was really full of water by the time you dug down. So it was terrible. Don't like to talk about it.
Well, was there any way to identify these fellows? Did you keep their dog tags?
Yeah, their dog tags. One of the dog tags was buried with them.
Oh, they were?
Yeah. In all cases that I remember, I still had mine. I still had mine for years. I don't know where it is now.
Well, was there any way to? Was there any list made of these dead soldiers?
I think there was. Yeah, see, there were officers with us on that burial detail. And there's people doing that type of work. Yeah, there were some there.
That had to be part of your worst experience.
Yeah, that was pretty bad, yeah.
Well, how long did you actually work at the mine?
Well, I just worked at the mine
I
was in the inside of that mine just that one day, and that was right ahead of it. And the rest of the time, I don't know. I suppose I was in there from December to, I don't know, what year was the war over? August?
45, yeah, August. Did you work there until the end of the war?
A little bit before, till, not quite to the end of the war, no.
Where did you go from the mine?
Well, I was disabled and that type of thing, and, except for that one day they had me down there pounding carbide while I was from, I don't know what day it was when I first got hurt.
But you said you weren't at the mine at the time the war ended.
Well, one day they were getting the fellows that were going into the mine, and I wasn't one of them, but they had them lined up out there, and there were airplanes buzzing around above us, and some of the guys that managed to get a look at them, which you weren't supposed to do, but said they were American carrier planes. And then that happened for 2 or 3 days, and then one day all of a sudden the mine was being was being strafed and bombed, but all the guys were made it safe. They were all inside and didn't get hit by anything. And there was those naval carrier planes coming down there.
Well, how about the spot where you had been working?
Well, I didn't go back there anymore, so I don't know. I think it made out okay, but I don't know. I can't.
Well, now, in some of these prison camps toward the end of the war, did the Japanese shoot the prisoners?
No, not that I know of. They
Okay.
were not where we were. They were in other camps in the Philippines. They did.
Uh-huh.
So I've read since then about the time that.
How did your camp get liberated?
Well, one day the guys, I wasn't working down there, but the fellows came up from the mine early. And I don't know the highest ranking man in our place was, I think it wasn't a colonel, I think it was lieutenant colonel or major, I can't remember now. And he, for some reason or other, he got the feeling that things just weren't right. So he went into the commandant's office and says, "Hey, this war's over, isn't it?" And he didn't want to admit it at first, but he admitted it. But he says we're just negotiating a peace. That's what he said. And he came in and gave us all a speech about having worked hard for the Japanese, and now we should rest and regain our health. And what had happened is how he really got curious about the war, I guess, was because the Japanese guards that were out there, the number just assigned to, there weren't too many of them, had all stacked their rifles out there and had left. And so we were there, and we couldn't get into. They didn't know where we were, and we couldn't get in touch with them. Finally, some guy rigged up a radio and got in touch with people somewhere. One of the Japanese had radios, but they all were. You could only tune Tokyo in on them. They said. I was told. I never. Anyway. And this one guy was sharp enough to wind a coil to some type that he could talk over those radio. You know, made transmitters out of it. Made a transmitter out of one of them. They finally found out where we were, and it must have been a week later. Here come over a bunch of B-20 or 3 B-29s dropping food in.
Into the camp where you were?
Yep.
Or the mine?
Yeah, came in real low. Biggest darn airplane I'd ever seen.
Now, in some of these situations where they would go from a camp to a mine or some other workstation, would they be moved by a truck? Did some of the GIs have to drive the trucks for the Japs?
No. I don't remember anyone driving the trucks. They had while I was kind of off duty, I got sent out on a job that wasn't too bad, a little better than walking on my foot. And that was gathering wood. They had to go someplace to pick up wood for the camp, for cooking, for cooking meals and everything, and it turned out to be a charcoal mobile. It had a charcoal
furnace?
Generated gas in the back. It took a long time to get it started, and when it did, it didn't have much power, but We did get a truckload of kindling and wood down there somewhere, and as I remember coming back, we had to push it part of the way because going uphill, it hardly had enough between it and the power of that engine. It was
Well, who was driving that? Was it
no, the Japanese were driving it.
Uh-huh. Well, I see a note here that many of the Japanese guards couldn't drive, so sometimes...
Oh, yeah. Most of them couldn't in the Philippines. In the Philippines, in Cabanatuan, that was always one of us driving. They were kind of amazed they could pick out practically any one of us and we could drive a truck. But
well, sometimes would the Japanese even have you hold their rifles for them?
yes, that's right. But most of the time when we see, I was going before I went to that Las Piñas. That's one of the things of doing a good share of the time was on that wood detail, and I'd go out on that. And a bunch of us with axes. We all had axes, and they had only 2 or 3 of them with rifles. So they weren't too scared of us, and. We'd get in the back of the truck, and the Japs that were getting in the back of the truck with us couldn't get up there with the rifles. So they'd give us the rifles to hold while we took their hands and helped them up into the... That always was kind of funny, I thought. And then on that farm, sometimes one of the old caribou would come in the farm. Had to get rid of him because he'd eat up the farm, you know. What the Japanese or what the Filipinos called caribou was a water buffalo.
Okay.
And it was a pretty good critter, size critter. And so they'd want to shoot him, but they didn't have the small Japanese rifles. Those guards had the captured Springfields or Enfields like the British used, and they were 30 caliber, just like ours. They use the same ammunition in both of them, but they hated to use them because they claimed they had too much recoil and it hurt their shoulders. So they'd hand us a rifle to shoot the caribou. Always seemed kind of crazy.
Did any of the prisoners try to escape any of the camps you were in?
Yeah, they did, but they had a rule: if one escaped, 10 others got, and that were still in camp got shot. So that happened, and that's to put a stop to that.
Where did that happen? Camp? It was down the Philippines?
Yeah.
It just happened one time?
Yeah, that I know. Well, I heard that it happened other times, but I don't know.
Did you see it happen one time?
Yeah.
How did they pick the other 9 to shoot?
Oh, they had us divided into squads. We didn't know who was in our same squad. If you were one of them, that was you.
Do you remember the actual day when you were liberated?
Well, yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Well, a couple of guys came up to me. See, he could come in on that railroad to a place down below where our barracks actually were. They weren't at the high top of the mountain, but they had we had quite a ways to go down a little path and back again. And these. I don't know how many of them came up there carrying a bunch of photographic equipment and stuff, and that was the last. We didn't get liberated that day, but that's the first time we'd gotten with the troops, you know, with our own troops. And then a little while after that, they took. They took the fellows that, in the hospital that were too sick to go any other way. They took them down first. And I don't know where they took them, but I understand they got airlifted somewhere somehow. I couldn't tell you how. I wasn't one of them. And the rest of us marched down that hill again and to the train station. They took us into Sendai again, and they had some destroyers, some ships, destroyers, taking us from there on down into the Tokyo area, Yokohama area where they were, and I stayed there one night. I had some bunks in a place somewhere, I remember. The next day they took us out to the airport, to an airport. There was, they were in groups. They'd keep us all in a group. We were in groups, and the group I was with, I can't remember how many was on, but we were to be taken out of
Yokohama?
Yeah, Yokohama. I guess that was Yokohama. Well, I don't know. They had a big fancy C-54 sitting right out there, and I hoping that's what we'd get on, but we didn't. That was MacArthur's.
Well, did you have a chance to celebrate getting relieved from prison?
No, I didn't really celebrate. No. While we were standing around there, waiting for our airlift out of there. The C-46 is what we finally got out of there. And
what did you feel like when you saw the first group of your own military guys come into camp? What did you feel like?
I felt pretty good. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not good at describing my feelings.
But you've been a prisoner of war for
over 3 years.
Over 3 years.
Yeah. I felt pretty good about it.
I'll bet. Do you remember your first good meal after you got freed?
Oh, no. We when they dropped those supplies, of course, a good share of those were K rations, and we thought that was ice cream and cake.
After all that rice, huh?
Yeah, that was K rations were pretty good, actually. And when we were waiting for our flight out of that airfield there that day, didn't know when they were going to get us out of there, but they had big piles of those K rations all over us. Help yourself, you know. One of the Japanese were all helping themselves, but they weren't. You know. And they took us on that plane, that C-46. They took us out of there over to Okinawa. Of course, we'd never heard of Okinawa, but took us over there, Okinawa. And boy, there we landed on an airstrip that was just piled up on one side and partially on two sides of supplies. You know, spare tires, just war supplies. They hadn't gotten, you know, they'd taken them in there planning on the invasion of Japan, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we were kind of amazed. And I don't know, I think I was there 2 days. And they took us out took this group I was with out to an airplane. They're going to fly us to the Philippines from Okinawa then. And looked at that. I was an old B-24, an old B-24 bomber.
Okay.
And it had, you know how if the bomber shot down an enemy airplane, he got a swastika normally. But of course in Japan then he'd have
The Rising
Sun. They had both of those. Both of those on that.
So he had been in both theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been in both theaters. And that was a pretty nice flight over there, and that would be 24.
Well, let me take you back to the camp when your officer was talking to the Japanese commander. Did their treatment change for you after that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, you go to the Philippines, and from the Philippines, do you come home?
Yeah, well, we came went to San Francisco, yeah, from there.
By plane or boat?
Boat. Went by boat, only it took, like I say, about 15 days instead of 30 days.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Because that was a direct route.
Yeah, it was nonstop.
And where did you stop in California?
They put us all in the hospital there, and name of the big, what is it? Still got that big hospital there in San Francisco, I think. Can't remember the name of it now. And then...
how long were you in the hospital?
Oh boy. I never took notes. I can't remember. It wasn't too long, probably maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know, we did a few things like for instance, in our hospital pajamas, they took us out one, I suppose it was Sunday, I don't know, but how they played in those days, but the Japanese 49ers were having a football game. I don't remember in the fall, so they gave us all a chance to come out and see that. We went out to see that football game just in our hospital pajamas.
So the National Football League 49ers were having a game?
Yeah, it was a regular game.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was one of the. I can't remember who they played, but it was the 49ers. They were at Kazar Stadium, man. It was called Kazar Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play there anymore, but they got a new stadium. But
so after your hospital stay, where did you go?
well, they put us on a train, and the train I was on, I don't know. It seemed to all be full of passengers or military people that were going to Colorado Springs, because that whole train was practically nonstop from Colorado Springs into where we went there. It was.
Where did you go from Colorado Springs? Did you come?
Well, I was in the
Ohio,
hospital there, and then I got leave, and my folks came out to visit me at that hospital.
Okay.
And they had their car, and they put me on terminal leave, and I went home with them, and then I had to go back there to go back to Denver finally to get discharged.
From the time you were in the Philippines in 40 to the time you saw your folks there in Denver, had you communicated with them in any fashion?
Well, not from the time we become prisoner. Yeah, they passed out some cards there that you could write, like you just answered some questions that were on the card that told you how you were feeling and this and that. And the folks got that.
Did you ever get any mail from them? Was that allowed?
I got while we were in Las Piñas, toward the last of the time. See, we'd never gotten Red Cross packages like those guys in German prisoners did. But we did get a mail. A bunch of us got, it was through the Red Cross, but it was packages that our folks had made up for us and the Red Cross was just saw to getting it, that it got shipped. So I got that package there, and she'd fastened a couple of letters on there too, from her and from Dad and her and from a few other people in town. And I got those at the same time. That's the only ones I got. And this was.
Well, did you have a girlfriend when you were in high school?
No special one. There's a.
So when you got home,
well, I got.
You got discharged.
Yeah.
What did you do after you were discharged from the Army?
I started going to college.
Where?
Well, I started in McCook Junior College, but I was going on a GI Bill, you know.
Sure.
It really wasn't a GI Bill. I had a small percent of disability for my ankle and leg. I was still bouncing around on, so I was able to use what was it? It's called can't remember. It was other than it wasn't strictly the GI Bill. It gave you a little bit more money.
Okay, it was some kind of a disability benefit.
Yeah, and they gave me more money. It was called Public Law 13, I think, is what it was called. But of course, I always just called it GI Bill, but it was actually Public Law 13. And so I transferred up to the University of Nebraska then, and went to Lincoln, which was all my credits from McCook Junior College were transferable. McCook Junior College was did work in accordance with the way the university told them to do it, so the credits were transferable, but there weren't too many of them. And then I went.
So did you graduate from Nebraska?
Yeah.
What did you graduate in? What was your major?
Mechanical engineering.
What got you interested in mechanical engineering?
Well, I was always nuts about airplanes, so I was going to take aeronautical engineering. But that was one of the things about that Public Law 13. They kind of told you what you could take, and first, before they started under that Public Law 13, they gave me a test. I took a test somewhere. I don't know, it was in Lincoln somewhere, and it was supposed to tell me what my aptitude was, what I was supposed to go to, and fortunately, they said I was made out for engineering. So I said, "How about aeronautical engineering?" Okay. So I was really, but it turned out they didn't have any aeronautical engineering a degree like that in Nebraska. They had mechanical engineering. And so after I'd gone there for a couple of years, they said I was going to have to transfer someplace else to get that aeronautical. And the dean of the engineering college there told me, "Well, yeah, you could transfer over here," but he says, "If you're just interested in getting into aviation," he says, "you can get in just as easy with mechanical engineering degree as aeronautical engineering." So I said on and changed, and that was all right with the VA. They agreed I could change to, so that's where I graduated.
When did you graduate from Nebraska?
52, I think it was, 1952. 52 mid-service. I had a...
Did you work any place during college?
No, I didn't. I didn't work any place. I just lived off the off the GI Bill, only it was Public Law 13, which gave me a little bit more money. And
Where did you live while you were going to school? Was there a dorm, or did you live off campus, or what?
I had taken my back pay. While I got paid while I was a prisoner, I took the back pay and bought a trailer.
Motor home? Mobile home?
Yeah. And I lived in that while I was going to school. I got married too. I was married while I was going to school.
Well, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I got married.
When did you meet your wife?
I met her in Bartley after.
You met her at home?
Yeah, I met her at home, and she.
When did you start dating her? When you were in college?
No, well, before I went to college, actually.
Well, did you write to her while you were in the service?
Well, I was going to the junior college. Yeah, I was staying at home pretty much, and I don't know.
So is that the girl you married?
Yep.
Now, what's her name?
Charlene.
What was her maiden name?
Greenlee.
Greenlee?
Greenlee. Yeah, Greenlee, I think.
Oh, Greenlee, okay.
Greenlee. Yep. Yeah, that was her name.
Was Charlene your age, or?
No, she was younger than me by about 7 years. See, I was used to girls about her age when I went in the service, and when I got back from the service, I thought of girls her age, just like it was when I. So she was about 7 years younger than me.
Well, when did you and Charlene get married?
When did we get married, Leona? It was. Just before I went to Lincoln to go to college, but I don't remember. Just haven't you got those years down somewhere?
Oh, I'm looking here, but I don't see it on your
anyway
on your bio.
There. Then when the year I was graduating.
You were married in 1947.
Oh, 47, yeah, okay. Yeah, I must have gone there. Anyway, when I was graduating from the university, Wright Patterson Air Force Base, you know, the Wright Air Development Center, as it was called then. Had been reduced way down to practically nothing after the war, but then the Korean War started, and they started building up again. And they sent some recruiters out there to the University of Nebraska and offered me a job at Wright Field.
What?
Right in the aircraft industry, right where I wanted.
Right where you wanted to be.
Yeah, I sure got into it, I'll tell you. Both feet.
Now, I show here that Charlene's first name was Nellie.
Yeah, Nellie Charlene.
Nellie Charlene Greenlee.
Yeah.
And Nellie passed away in 1964.
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
What, did she have a heart problem? Or
Well,
cancer?
she died of asthma.
Asthma?
She became asthmatic
Oh, shoot.
a couple of years after we were married, and I don't know, she just couldn't make it.
Did you and Charlene have children?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, tell me about them. The oldest.
The oldest one is William Dale, named after my brother, and both my, and he was William Dale, and then there.
Is William Dale still living?
Oh yes,
Where does he live?
he lives in Springfield, and he comes here every Friday and plays his violin for me.
Oh, nice.
He's fairly good at it.
Is he retired from work?
Yeah, he's retired from Navistar. I guess that's the right name.
That was the old International Harvester truck?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. He retired from there, and then
Is he married?
yes, he's married.
Do you remember his wife's name?
What's his wife's name?
Rose.
Rose?
Rose, yeah, Rose.
All right.
Rosie. We call him her Rosie, and that's all I know. If she's got a middle name or what her unmarried name was, I don't know. Do you, Leona?
No, I don't know.
I don't know. But
Does he have children?
No.
she doesn't have children.
Okay.
She's got, nephews? Isn't that right?
You've got more than William. Who's your next one?
Oh, well, next one was
Mary Helen?
Mary Helen was the next one, yes.
And
Mary Helen, and then...
is she married?
No, she isn't. And then it was Donnie, the next one was Donnie.
Well, let's stay with Mary for a minute.
Okay.
Is Mary still living?
Yeah, she lives in Tennessee. She's therapist was what she worked at. She got a degree in given what do you call it? Working with people that need
Therapy?
therapy. Yeah,
Physical therapy?
Therapy. That's a word. That's a
Okay.
good word. That's a word. So she was a therapist. And
Where's she live in Tennessee? Big city, little city?
what's the name of her city, Leona? It's close to Tullahoma, but it's a smaller town than Tullahoma.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Rock Island, Tennessee.
Rock Island?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that?
Rock Island,
Rock Island,
Tennessee.
Tennessee? Okay. And your next one you started telling me was Donald?
Yeah. Donald Craig. He's got my initials,
Okay.
but not. But he's not a junior because his middle name is different.
Different. Uh-huh. So is Don still with us?
Oh yeah, he's.
Where's he live?
He lives in close to Marysville, out in Boonies there. What is the name? What is his address? I don't know.
It's North Lewisburg.
North Lewisburg?
North Lewisburg. The ice.
And is he retired or is he working?
He's retired.
Remember what he did?
Well, yeah, he was an engineer too.
Okay, good.
And when he worked in a plant that made molds to mold different types of items from mostly pot metal type mold.
Mm-hmm.
He worked in
Where did he get his engineering degree?
Ohio State.
How about Dale? Did he go to college?
Who, Bill? No.
William Dale?
No,
No?
he didn't go. He went a year or so, but he didn't want to go. He told me he didn't want to anymore.
How about Mary Helen?
Well, she just got that degree in
therapy?
therapy. Yes.
You know where that was?
And I was in California, San Diego, but I don't know. I guess it was San Diego State, I think.
Okay. And you have one more child.
Yeah. Sure.
Your last one?
Well, it's Roderick.
Roderick. You call him Roderick or Rod?
We call him Rod.
Is he still with us?
Yeah. He's
Where's he live?
he lives in Springfield. He's had a stroke. He hasn't been too well. He's had a stroke and a few things, and right now he's living in Springfield. And
Did you go to college?
no,
I forgot to ask you about Donald. Donald married?
yep,
You know his wife's name?
yeah. Her name is say it, Leona. I can't.
Emily.
Emily?
Emily, yeah.
Okay. Did Don and Emily have children?
Oh, yeah. They got a couple of my grandchildren.
Okay. How about Rod? Is he married?
No, he's never been married.
Okay.
But they got my Donna and Emily. They have a grandchild of their own. So I have a great grandchild there.
Oh, good. Good. So did you retire from Wright-Patterson?
Oh yes, that's where I was retired. Wright Pat came out and got me.
When did you retire from Wright-Pat?
I think it was in '52, but I'm not sure.
62?
52, 51 or 52, and I'm not sure which it is.
How old were you when you retired?
How old was I?
Yeah.
Well, if it was 52, it would have been
If you were born in
from 22. So,
If you were born in 22, did you work till you were 60?
well, I worked till I was 55.
All right.
But I had, for those years I was in the Army and in prison camp, I got time, full time as that's the way civil service was then. You got full time. I'd have left there long ago if it hadn't been for that.
Well, at Wright-Pat in 1952, you would have been 30 years old. So where did you work after Wright-Pat?
That's the only place.
You're just, I may have it here.
I don't know those times. I can't remember.
79.
That's
Yeah, 79.
About 1979.
Yeah, that's when 79 is when I retired, yeah.
So what did you do after retirement?
Well, I didn't do anything. I loafed. I just a loafer, that's all.
Do you have any hobbies? Do you golf or woodwork or fish or?
Oh, gardening.
Gardening?
A little bit of gardening, yeah. Yeah.
Some of the same stuff you did for the Japanese, you did some gardening, huh?
Yeah. They taught me how.
So, how's your health now? I know you've got some sight problems.
Pretty good. I got, I think, I don't know. They say I had a heart attack, and they say I had a stroke, but I don't know. My heart doctor says my heart's okay.
That's great.
He said, your heart's okay. See me in a year.
I'm going to get up here so the cameraman can show what's on the back of my chair. Let him zoom in on that.
What's that?
He's showing the cover on the back of my chair that says CPL Donald Wight, U.S. Army, World War II POW.
Yeah, they gave it to me. Those other people that came in here talking to me. The first one was from that Urbana paper. Now, that article tells you about everything.
Oh, there's something else I want to show.
Oh, you've got?
I want to show the shadow box that's got your flag in it, and it's got the Ford Oval of Honor, in honor of service to our country, granted to Corporal Donald Wight, July 20, 2023. Now, did they do that at a ceremony at Wright-Patterson?
Yeah, at the museum. Museum
Yeah.
out there. Yeah, they had that. They had a fellow in there that was had his legs blown off. I guess it's both of them, wasn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, both of them. And he gave a speech. He gave a real good speech, I thought. Real nice. What was it? Afghanistan, wasn't it, where that happened?
Yeah, I think so.
And he gave a speech, and I had a couple other veterans.
Now, when did you get your designation as a corporal?
Well, and
In prison?
yeah, basically,
Uh-huh.
I guess. I was corporal when I came out. That's all I know. The Japanese weren't putting out any promotions.
Now, with us here today for your interview is Richard. Richard, what's your last name?
Wiseman,
Wiseman?
yes.
How long have you known Richard?
Well, ever since he married my daughter, a little before then.
Your daughter Leona?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, a little before then, I guess.
And Leona's been with
Before
us?
I knew him before they were married.
Now, you know, we've talked about William Dale, we talked about Mary Helen,
Yeah.
Donald, Roderick. We haven't talked about Leona.
Well, she's. Yeah. What we need to tell about Leona? She went to.
Was Leona your daughter?
Yeah. She's stepdaughter. She's stepdaughter.
Okay. So
And
after your first wife died,
Leona has a daughter, which is sort of a grandchild of mine in a way.
sure.
And
Well, after your first wife died, you remarried.
yeah.
All right. What was your second?
Leona's responsible for that. Now, that's what she's responsible for. Tell them, Leona.
Well, me and Mary,
Well,
his daughter.
Come over closer.
They
Leona, come on over here closer.
were friends. My daughter and her.
Here. Just.
Mary and I were friends together. We were in high school, and we met up, and she told me her mom had passed away, and I said, my dad's passed away. And then she says, let's get them together. And we both started laughing, and then we started talking to them, and we got them together. And that's how they ended up getting married.
And what was her name?
Mary.
Mary Helen.
Well, my mom's name was Audrey.
Audrey.
Oh yeah, her name was Audrey. Yeah. When we were Audrey and I were first married, there were seven children in the family, wasn't there? Four and three, yes. Or yeah, 7 children in the family. We had a big house full. We bought another house, had a pretty good sized house, and
Audrey passed away in 2017. That's what I've got down here.
No, that wouldn't be right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Leona says that's when it was.
Oh, okay.
2017,
Okay,
so that's been 8 years ago.
Of course, you said that right away.
Now,
What away?
Audrey's name was Audrey Lorena, Lorena, and she was a Martin and an Adkins,
Yeah,
and then a Wight.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. Her husband had been a sergeant in the Air Force, master sergeant, I guess, was he, or staff sergeant? What was he?
You've got 3 stepchildren: Leona Wiseman, Deborah Burks
Yeah,
and Leanne Atkins.
yeah, he's
And
dead.
Leanna passed away.
Yes, he did.
And I see 3 grandchildren, Melinda Monteith, Abigail Wight, and Benjamin Wight.
Yeah, and then the great-grandchildren,
Ashley Monteith,
yeah,
Kelsey Monteith,
yeah.
Monteith.
Now those are, that's Leona's children.
Okay, and
But there's other grandchild of mine, that Donnie's. She's Mercy Jo. Mercy.
yeah, Mercy Jo White
Yeah.
Chowastra,
she's-
SCHOUWSTRA.
Yeah.
Well, we've been at this quite a long time. You might be tired, but let me ask our faithful cameraman, Ken, if he has some questions.
Yes, I'd like to know, I believe I read in there that you had a guard at the Japanese camp that you called Donald Duck. Is that
Oh well, yeah. That was one of a lot of the most of the things I remember are the funny things that happened. We had one. We was working in the garden in the farm. It was a big farm rather than just a garden, and this one guard that would come around checking on us all the time. He'd get a little disgusted sometime, but I don't think he ever hurt anybody. But he'd get mad, and to us he sounded like Donald Duck did in the movies, when he got excited. So we just called him Donald Duck. And they had an interpreter. He was a Jew boy that was one of the in the army. But he learned Japanese just right away. He knew how to speak Japanese not long after he was in camp. And he said that learning the first strange language was hard, but he'd learned Spanish and German.
Oh, really?
And he said, of course, he'd finally they'd wound up after fleeing Hitler. And getting away from him, he'd wound up in the States and New Mexico, and he had a lot of Mexicans around him, and he learned Spanish there. But anyway, he knew he seemed to know that he talked when he was talking to them. He just sounded to me like one of them. And they didn't even have to ask anybody a question again, usually. Anyway, he was coming around with Donald Duck this one day there at the farm, and he was. We were down there working, trying to make out like we were working hard, but we were talking while him and the interpreter standing there, and we used the word something about Donald Duck a couple of times. And when they were walking away, then I heard him say, "Donald Duck," and I realized that they were asking. He was asking this interpreter, who was Donald Duck, And I thought, boy, he's in trouble. But afterwards, they seemed to get along okay, and I asked this interpreter, I says, what in the heck did you tell him? And he was asking about Donald Duck. He said, I just told him he was a famous movie star. I made him happy.
by chance, was there another soldier, POW there, named Louis Zamperini that you could recall? Because I read a book called Unbroken concerning him, and I think he had the same story about Donald Duck.
Yeah.
Louis Santorino, does that sound familiar?
No, I don't remember that.
Richard, did you want to ask anything?
No, sir, I think you covered it all.
Another funny thing that kind of happened, I thought was funny at the time. We all thought it was pretty funny. We were working in the garden, we had an irrigation system there that was, pass the bucket here and there and there and on up the line.
Uh-huh.
And we had a hole dug there that we dumped the guys dumped the water in, and then the rest of us would dip water out of there to water the garden while we were there at this onion patch, and they loved onions. And not only that, but there was just a tiny bit of water left in there that morning when we came up there, and we all stood around it and took a leak right in that thing. And I had a big Jack General, big brass coming. They wanted everything to be just right. And when he saw those darn onions, he couldn't resist himself. He reached down, pulled an onion, scraped a little dirt off of it, and then he reached down in that puddle of ours to wash it off. He thought it was good. They loved onions.
And you guys were all standing around there.
The way we were standing, we were down on our knees working on the onions. I always thought that was kind of funny. We all got charged out of that.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me about your experiences there. Is there anything that strikes you that you'd want to tell us about that we haven't talked about?
No, I guess not, except that they all seem kind of pretty much backwards to us. They're not mine. They were up on top of the mine. You go into the mine on the railroad, and there was an elevator there to take you clear up the top, and they were building something up there, a building of some type, I guess. But they needed cement up there. They were building something that needed concrete, and they had a place down below where they had some concrete stored, and they were filling the sacks of concrete there, of cement, not concrete, cement, the cement, and putting them on our back and having us pack it up the road to the top. And that was quite a long trip.
How heavy were they?
I don't know. They were pretty heavy when we started, but we were kind of backing up against the cliff once in a while when there wasn't one of them looking. We get a little hole in that sack, and we'd lighten them out a little bit that way. But anyway, we suggested to him, he says, you got those little cars going back into by that elevator every trip they made. Why would we just load that darn cement in there, and that would be a lot easier. Oh, so. And they were going to do that. But when they came back and they'd seen the big shot, and the big shot said, we don't do it that way. And so we had to, they just seemed like they were backwards.
Uh-huh.
But yet there were some smart ones too. Had to be somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you for your interview. Let me shake your hand.
Oh yeah.
And
okay,
thank you for your service.
Well,
and I'm glad you made it through all your marches and your prisoner of war camps.
Well, thank you.
And your career at Wright-Patterson, I imagine you enjoyed that immensely.
Yes, I did. I had a good time there. I had some good jobs. I did a lot aerial refueling, and I got to go up on the test flights on that. I wasn't a pilot, but I go up as a
test. You went up on test flights?
Test operator, yeah.
Oh.
And I liked that. I thought that was great.
So what kind of test flights did you go on?
Well, mostly, you see the the SAC, the Strategic Air Command, had the boom that you see flying around with the big boom that goes down.
Uh-huh.
But TAC wanted to be able to refuel their little airplanes. And
right.
Usually they had a bigger, so we started developing, some general got the idea we should develop a tactical aircraft refueling system, so we went to another system probe drogue, and that's what I was dealing in. We'd have a hose out with what we called a drogue on the end to give it stability and drag.
Uh-huh.
And then they'd come up and hit that. And, we had a lot of problems, but it was kind of interesting. And then I did a lot of work on tanks too, fuel tanks.
Uh-huh.
Fuel systems in general is what I worked on.
Oh, good. Well, thank you again. I'll let you rest. We've been at this a good while.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For whatever good it is.